Hello, friends. Welcome to this rescheduled History News Live. I must apologise for last Monday. As I posted on my community tab, I did have some trouble with my ears. If you were watching History After Dark on Sunday, yes, that was the 19th. If you were watching History After Dark, you would have seen me with my lovely pals at the Tower of London. And I was talking to my phone. Alas, I could hear nothing, and it only got worse from there. My ears completely blocked. It was pretty irritating and quite disconcerting, to be honest. So thank you for your patience and for taking the time to join me. As you can see, we have got another wonderful background. This one comes to us from Beth. Thank you so much, Beth, for sending this in. I'm wondering, can we guess where I am? While we put the guesses in, let's say some hellos. Hello, Shane. Thank you so much. Yes, we are all doing well. And I'm very pleased that you enjoyed our little trip to the tower. It's always fun when the three of us can get together, and usually fairly silly and vulgar, as you may expect if you watch History After Dark. We have, in a couple of weeks, we are planning to meet up for an overnight stay. So there will be the three of us in a hotel, separate rooms. We don't bunk in. We're adults. But yes, no doubt there will be shenanigans to share. Scarlet says hello to Shane, and hello to you, Scarlet. Stuart joins us from Dartmoor. I'm assuming that's Dartmoor, but I think I might start calling it Dartmoor, because why not? Hello, Steve. Linda, yes, happy Memorial Day. It is a bank holiday for us here, so I hope you've had a lovely Monday, whatever part of your Monday you are in at the moment. Hello, Katie. Yes, well, it's been raining here, so we took my son to soft play this morning because we were like, well, it's a long weekend. It's been 3 days of him at home, so soft play he goes. Let's let him throw himself around on some mats. Hello, Liz. Thank you for joining. Jenna, thank you so much. Julesy, thank you. I'm glad that you're here. Yes, I am very sorry about last Monday. I do actually have some news as well separately, but I'm just going to do my hellos. Afternoon for you, is it, Marianne? Well, it's now just gone 8:30 for me. So wherever you are on your Monday, hello, hello. Hello, Sharon. Yes, your father fought in World War II and your brother in Vietnam. So you are observing Memorial Day. I have to say, I don't know how big of a deal a Memorial Day is in the States. I see politicians posting about it. But I assume if you've had family that served, it becomes very significant, of course. Beth joining us from New Zealand, but it's Tuesday for you. My goodness, what is the future like? I hope safe. Do we have anything to worry about? Let us know. Let us know. Stuart, overnight, the ladies may enjoy some wine. I am teetotal and have been for over a decade. I'm just like this. I need no encouragement in the face of booze. But yes. So, Katherine's here. There she is, my lovely pal from History After Dark. Welcome, welcome, joining in. And I was just saying, Katherine, that in a couple of weeks, you, me, and Philippa are going to be causing trouble. Lads on tour. So have we got any guesses as to where we are? I did see somebody say Italy. I did see someone say Italy. I'm going to just let you know. We are not in Italy. This is the Port Royal Gate leading into Entreveux, which is, I'm reliably informed, my geography is shocking, but I'm reliably informed is in the French Riviera, on the Côte d'Azur. So thank you, Beth, for saying that. It is beautiful. I love it. So thank you all of you who are joining live. And if you're watching on the playback, thank you so much for taking the time. We do have some updates, some repatriation / decolonization news. We've got some new news. We have got at least one ding dong. There is one that's slightly tenuous. And we have got some events and exhibitions. I am still having trouble with the opera pinboard. So articles are going to be listed and numbered in the description box. You will see the numbers in the description box relating to the numbers that are going to be on screen on the bottom of the slides. I have, of course, had lots of people sending me articles. This is last week's live with the addition of some things that have come in since. I have seen a few news items coming in today, which have not been added, but they will be in the one in 2 weeks' time, assuming we haven't already spoken about them today. That is what I have for you. I do have some thanks, of course, people who sent me news items. So without further ado, let us hop into that. I would like to thank Cave Felem, Yvonne, Jessie, Kathy, Kelly, Daniella, Scarlet OhHaha, Natalie, my name twin cat, Alicia, Katherine, Elverta, Kate, Beth, Kathryn, Elaine, Jenna, Zoe, and Joseph. Thank you ever so much for taking the time. There is something up the top of the show that I just want to flag up because it may result in there being some changes to the way we do the History News Live going forward, and also to the way that my channel runs in a few months' time. It's also the reason I'm reliably informed that my ears went a little bit doolally this week. They are almost better, not quite. I have to go back to the doctor tomorrow to see if there's something in the inner ear that needs some help. But the reason apparently why I'm having this trouble with my ears is because I am experiencing a hormonal shift. And that is because I am currently 22 weeks pregnant with my second child. So we are going to be having a new mini Dr. Cat. Of course, the first one will not be replaced. But that is one of the reasons why my ears have been so dodgy. And if you saw me at the tower, thank you for not mentioning it, because I am very visibly pregnant. I am massive. In fact, I think if I reverse, I should be beeping. It's a time. What that does mean is that I think perhaps if you have experienced carrying a human inside of you, a few things happen. You do need to pee a lot more regularly, and you can also experience some muscular pain. So I will be working very hard to not babble quite so much in these because I can't really keep going for a roughly 3-hour live stream. It is becoming a little bit too much for my muscles to deal with, and also my bladder. Stuart says, another Timmy. We have in fact found out it is another boy. And in the scan where they were checking everything, unfortunately, everything does look okay. We're very pleased about that, obviously, most important thing. In that scan, my child was in what I can only describe as a shoulder stand for the entirety of the scan. Feet completely over the head. And it was at that moment that I realized that I'm going to come to realize and look back on Gabriel as my quiet child. And that is unspeakably terrifying. So send help. Please send help. We're very excited. And Gabriel is also very excited to be a big brother, even if he has been occasionally slightly weird about it, like asking me to open up my tummy so he can see the baby. That was weird. But I think the worst one was when he laid on my tummy and said, you stay in there, baby. I'm going to come and get you. I don't know. I don't know what to do with that. So there we go. Makeup and Monarchy says, they say the second one is a troublemaker. Mine wasn't, but they usually are. Oh, good. I'm so excited. So, Shane, 2 boys and a chinchilla. Yep, the chaos reigns supreme in this house. So that is my news. I also am looking. There's going to be some content, pre-recorded content on my channel. I want to do something related to gynecological history and really, I suppose, the differing experiences, as far as I can, of being pregnant in the 21st century compared with what my perhaps Tudor counterparts might have experienced. I'm under no illusion, considering my first pregnancy ended up with a C-section delivery, that the biggest difference potentially between then and now is that I might not have survived my first pregnancy. But I do want to investigate that and talk about various things. So the process of menstruation and how that works, the process of getting pregnant, working around feast days and fast days, all the way through to things like the quickening, dressing the pregnant body if I can, things like confinement, and also the period after a person's given birth before churching happens. So yes, all of that going on. Katherine is completely right. Gabriel does love his Uncle Katherine. We're not quite sure why he calls her Uncle Katherine, but that is what he's decided. She is Uncle Katherine. and he likes to make her videos. When he's not seen her for a while, he says, "Where's Uncle Katherine?" And we make some videos to send over, and she sends them back. So there we go. Katie, you're up for a pregnancy and childbirth through history. Yes, I am too. And it's been something that's interested me for a very, very long time. So I hope that I can do a few videos between now and certainly the end of the year. If not the end of my pregnancy, I may do some after, because the experience of recuperating 21st century versus the 16th, I think would also be interesting. Nicola, it would be very interesting to think about pregnancy when it comes to different classes. And I will do my very best to see what I can find out about that. But what I'm going to say is that gynecological history, women's history in general, those sorts of stories are very, very obscured. So when it comes to interventions and treatments and things like that, we know a fair amount about the ceremonies surrounding elite and noble women. We know about things like confinement and how that might have looked and how those rooms might have been set up. It's unclear what's happening for the women who would be the wet nurses for those elite babies in certain cases. We have some ideas about the difference between a midwife's care and a physician's care. Seemingly, what we know of the statistics, that midwife care tends to have better outcomes. But equally, it could be that the women who are receiving midwife care may have been in some ways more physically robust. So, yes, Fluffy, thank you. Thank you very much. 22 weeks, and it's another boy. 22 weeks pregnant with another little boy, and we are very, very excited. So let us hop in to the history news. We have the updates first. Without further ado, that Roman dodecahedron, which is still the subject of hearty debate as to what it was actually for, the finger glove knitting thing is up there. However, there's been articles out recently fervently disagreeing with it. So we still don't know. It's referred to as a mysterious Roman artifact. It is going, however, on display for the first time in Lincolnshire. Julesy, I haven't seen this one suggested, that it may in fact be for D&D. I mean, I've seen some weird die. Some weird die. Why not this? Why not? Beth says that this is on my series on pregnancy. Mama Dr. Jones, I've been watching her videos. I watch them in a way to to try and find a way to get over my previous childbirth experience, which I think I'm going to have to talk about if we're going to discuss this, because it was traumatic. So I will, of course, when I do talk about that in a pre-recorded video, I will flag up that I'm talking about birth and birth trauma, because I fully understand. And if the report coming out of England, the UK, about maternity trauma is to be believed, I am certainly not alone. So I will flag up that I'm about to talk about it, so that people don't have to listen to that if it's not for them. But yes, Mama Dr. Jones makes fabulous content. Very impressed. She has a lot of kids. That woman does it all. So this was found in a place, the fabulously named place, Norton Disney, which is apparently near Lincoln. I did not know there was a place called Norton Disney. But considering we haven't got a Walt Disneyland or World here, surely that would be the place to put it. So this was found in the summer of 2023, so last summer. It is 3 inches tall and it weighs apparently 8 ounces. It is a 12-sided object, so it's a 12-sided dice. And as Steve points out, they are lonely because they are rarely used. I have to say, I've got no idea how these dice will work or how you read them, but clearly they have a good old time. There is a secretary of the Norton Disney History and Archaeology Group, Richard Parker. What a thing to be a part of. I kind of want to join the group, who has handled the object, and it's thought to have been buried about 1700 years ago. However, they still don't know, as we pointed out, what it is. It's been discussed that it might have been for magic, rituals, or religion. So once again, potential ritual purposes, unsurprisingly, coming up there. And we have talked about it potentially being used to knit gloves. So if you want to go and see it for yourself, then head to Lincoln and you'll be able to locate it in the museum there. So if you want to check it out, that's the place to go. And maybe if you do, you can let us know what you think it is. We talked about this dig previously, and we have some more news coming out of it, and certainly some clearer images. This is the excavation of 3 Greek mosaics in eastern Turkey. And as you can see from the pictures we've got here, they are absolutely fabulous. This excavation work started in 2007, and the team comes from Ankara University in Turkey. They have been focusing on something that's being called Muzala House, thought to have once housed a wealthy family. I think understandably from the state of the decorations, there's money involved here. And they have found 3 elaborately coloured mosaics that would have adorned the walls. So they have got, one of the mosaics has got 9 muses. So you've got the muse Calliope, who is the protector of epic poetry. You've got Oceanus and Tethys, the personifications of the sea. You've got a 3rd mosaic showing Thalia, who is one of the 9 muses associated with comedy. There was apparently a robbery at the site, so now these mosaics have been relocated to a local museum for restoration and conservation, and the site is now being protected with a temporary roof to ensure that it's being preserved. There are ongoing excavations on this site going to be continuing into next year, and it's thought that on the site at Ziguma there was once 2,000 to 3,000 houses. Of those thousands of houses, 25 remain underwater. The hope is that through doing these further excavations, they're going to find out more about the city's history. The city was, we're told, founded in the early 3rd century BC by a successor to Alexander the Great. And and then in 64 BC, the Roman Republic gained control of the city. Scarlet, that big one is gorgeous. It's the vibrancy of the colours, and of course they would have been vibrant when they were first installed, but the survival of that vibrancy is just what a thing to have found. What a thing. Crazy Artist Lady, I'm not sure what was stolen from the site. Clearly not these mosaics, because they have got them in a museum. They don't specifically say what was robbed from the site. It may have been the equipment. The digging equipment could have been the machines that I assume are being used. That may have been what was stolen. It's not clear what the theft involved. But yes, these sites do require a great deal of protection. So, on to our next. We have got some more findings coming out of Roanoke. We've talked a lot about the excavation processes that are going on there, and there are archaeologists from a group called the First Colony Foundation, and they are talking about the findings they have just made. There is some information about Roanoke for those who are uninformed or who don't know about Roanoke. I do have a video on it, so do check that out. But Roanoke is the first ultimately unsuccessful English colony in North America, and it is one of those spaces and one of those stories that continues to be a site of mystery and potentially conspiracy, depending on who you are and what you think is going on. These excavations that started in March 2024, the new set of excavations, have uncovered shards of Algonquin pottery dating back to the 1500s. They've also found a ring of copper wire that they think was actually worn by an Algonquin warrior. The archaeologists are speculating that this ring was brought to North America by English settlers and then traded with the indigenous people who would have wanted it because they believed that copper had spiritual significance. The Dr. Eric Klinghoffer, who is the Vice President of Research for the First Colony Foundation, said, quote, "Finding domestic pottery, the type used for cooking, in close proximity to an apparent piece of Native American jewellery strongly confirms we are digging in the midst of a settlement. And Roanoke is the only known village at that site. The copper ring indicates contact with the English." He's pointed out these new findings confirm a theory that matches what we know of the village. It was described as a palisaded village because the explorers came here and recorded it. And these findings add to our story. There is due to be another set of digs, explorations scheduled for the summer of 2024, this summer, which will be taking place at Fort Raleigh National Historic Site. The hope being that they're going to find evidence for the original settlement of the colonists. So, as and where we will... Julesy, Virginia Dare is the first English baby born to English parents. Her mother may have been called Elizabeth, but her mother is the daughter of John White, who is the first governor. He leaves to go and resupply, and then he gets stuck in England. And when he comes back, he finds that the settlement has been abandoned. John White is also the person responsible for the watercolors of the land and people and animals that he encounters in Virginia. So, yes, in fact, he will be a main focus of the paper that I will be giving at Harvington Hall when I do so in July. So, yes. Virginia Dare. So as and when we find out more about that, I will, of course, let you all know. The British Museum has found 268 more missing artefacts. As you can see, perhaps this might also go some way to explain why they were able to go missing in the first place. As you can see, these are very, very small items. Should they have been better observed and catalogued? Yes, Katherine. I am talking about John White's watercolors and the subsequent engravings by Theodore de Bry. That is part of my talk at Harvington. Absolutely. Yes. I think Katherine might be on a slight lag with her. Is perhaps Catherine's tech is playing up again? Are you delayed, babe? Perhaps a little. Julesy, they are very small. I don't think that makes it okay that we didn't notice so many of them went missing. I say we, I wasn't there. I don't think that makes it okay, but it's not like somebody's moving out 4 poster beds. It's not like somebody's moving out one of the Parthenon sculptures. I mean, maybe that would be a good thing, can send them back where they belong. But we are looking here at very, very tiny things. I have seen some headlines coming in the email that I've been receiving today talking about the FBI being involved. I haven't managed to put that into this one, but it will no doubt be in the updates going forward. So, as we know, up to 2,000 items have gone missing. However, I think they're unsure of what they were because of the cataloguing. The operation is now global, objects being found all over the world, which perhaps is why the FBI is involved. No doubt at some point we're going to hear from our favourite DA going forward. We have Peter Higgs, who is the curator who is accused of being the one to have pinched all this stuff, has, however, denied the allegations. We are told about there being a lack of cataloguing and records, so they don't know which of the recovered items actually came from its collection. So currently, these items are coming back to the museum as donations. George Osborne, who is the chair of the museum, has said that detective work from staff has resulted in the latest discoveries. He said, quote, "Few expect to see this day, and even I had my doubts. More than 600 of the objects are back with us, and a further 100 have been identified. In total, almost half the stolen items that we could recover." He goes on, "When we announced the devastating news that objects had been stolen from our collection, people understandably assumed that that was it. We were unlikely to ever see more than a handful of them again. That's usually the history with thefts like this." And Kathryn, no, you are wonderful, but tech hates you. But we don't. There are, however, a number of the pieces which were never catalogued by the museum have been sold on eBay for as little as a few pounds. It's wild to me that this is what happened with them, that they were sold for so little. And if this is still alleged at this juncture, if this individual, this senior curator, has done this, the motive for me is so peculiar. To sell it for such little money. 200, yeah, well, up to 2,000 items. So Scarlet says 268 more. How many went missing? Around 2,000. They aren't completely sure. It's wild. There was a civil court hearing in which lawyers from the museum described how they believe the suspect in this case altered internal records to try and cover his tracks. The British Museum was told at the end of 2023 to improve its records by an internal review following the theft. I mean, that's an understatement, obviously. And it's going to spend, we are told, £10 million to document its entire collection and make it available online within 5 years. The Metropolitan Police is investigating, but no arrests have been made. Oh, presumably, though, the curator was arrested, unless he wasn't. When they say no arrests have been made, I'm going to have to double check that and get back to you. That's odd, right? Thanks, Jessie. Thank you. We're very excited. I'm very tired, but I'm very excited. Update. We've talked about this. The lost Caravaggio, which sold for €1,500, is going on show in Madrid. This is a lost Caravaggio of the scourged, that's the word I'm looking for. Scourged and thorn-crowned Christ that had previously been misattributed is going to go on show at the Prado Museum in Madrid. This is 3 years after discovery. This is one of my first news items that I've talked about, one of the very early ones. Collectors around the world got wind of the painting's possible curators. Experts at the Prado contacted Spain's cultural ministry, and they then moved very quickly to impose an export ban. The Madrid regional government also speedily awarded the painting protected heritage status to keep it in the country. The director of the Prado said, quote, "We discovered that this is indeed a Caravaggio and a painting that was brought to Spain in the 17th century and attributed to the Italian painter. During the Napoleonic invasion, it left the royal collection and it had been a private family collection in Madrid since the 19th century. The family recently decided to sell the picture to a private buyer. This person became interested in exhibiting this very important work at the Prado." The art historian and professor of art at the Bologna Fine Arts Academy said, "When I saw the painting, I couldn't believe my eyes. The impact was so immediate that I instantly knew this was a Caravaggio. It was like meeting someone on the streets who you haven't seen for a long time. It's difficult to explain what happens in certain moments when in a millisecond you have such an impression. It's often a question of instinct." So if you are at the Prado anytime soon, you get a chance to see it, please do let us know what it looks like in person and the experience of having a little check of that. How fabulous. Jessie, thank you ever so much. Thank you. Yes, Jamie is over the moon, even if he is a little bit terrified that he's going to have another small human whose favourite phrase is, "I fight daddy." And now he might have one that can tag team. So I have no doubt that Gabriel is going to teach his little brother, "We fight daddy." They don't fight mummy. They know. They know too well not to fight mummy. Mummy's a biter. Well, there are questions about me calling my child Timmy. I look, as much as $500 would help with baby essentials, I'm going to be honest with you, it's not going to happen. There are many names that have been vetoed, and Timmy is one of them. Purely because of Timmy is a problem. I have a mug saying Timmy is a problem, which, to be honest, could be a good reason. Could be a good reason to call the kid Timmy. I mean, why not Lucifer? Considering, I think we may. I don't know if we want a kind of fleet of archangels. It might make the egos a bit too big. No fleet of archangels in my house. So those are the updates. We are now heading on to repatriation. Liz, you could have told me that 15 odd years ago. I married one. I've married a James. What am I going to do about that? He's the dad. That's a problem, isn't it? Troublemakers are out, so not Henry then. Well, I'll be honest with you. There was when I was told it was another boy. I will be honest. One of my first thoughts was, well, Henry VIII would have loved me. As a producer of masculine children, he would have loved me. Right, so on to repatriations. This is my one repatriation for today. This is coming from a Facebook post, the Southern Chiefs Organisation. The leadership of the Bertel Museum returned these items that rightfully belong to the nation. Included in this are a beaded necklace and moccasins dating back to the 1800s. The Jordan's principal team in Birdtail Zoo is working towards properly storing and displaying these treasured items. They also plan to honour the Birth Museum and the families in Birdtail who are connected to the artefacts in a special ceremony. That special ceremony took place at the start of this month on the 9th of May. So these items have now been repatriated, and rightly so. Important artifacts dating back, some of them dating back as far as the 1800s. Next up, we are now heading into our new news, and we have got a child archaeologist. What are we going to call our collection of child archaeologists? The Round Table of History? The Baby Knights of Discovery? We've got to think about this, I think. A man, his grandson, look at little Cody. He's only 3, bless him. Look at his little face. They have uncovered evidence of dinosaurs. The Round Table of Miniarchs, like monarchs. The Round Table of Miniarchs. That's definitely got to be up there. If I ever start a kids club, which I won't do because I only really like my own kids. If I ever start a kids club, that will be the branding. They were exploring Irchester Country Park, and they found an unusually shaped rock. Then they called in experts from the Natural History Museum in London, and it was determined to be a cast of a dinosaur's footprint. It's believed this belonged to a megalosaurus, which would have once stood 6 meters or 20 feet in length. The next step is going to be to research the local geology. If this local geology search helps you to discover the area is prehistorically covered in a massive ocean, then they're going to know that it's impossible for these dinosaurs to have walked on the land. But studies of maps from the British Geological Survey show clearly, apparently, that the spot on which it stood was an ancient shoreline overlooking a large inlet. We've got a picture there of how the Victorians thought the megalosaurus looked. That's the one on the right. And how modern scientists now understand it looked on the left, which is a little bit more T-Rexy than otherwise. There's quite a big difference there, isn't there, between right and left? That's supposed to be the same creature, which does make you wonder, how wrong are we still getting the appearance of these beasties? The council there, Northamptonshire Council, is apparently hoping that the dinosaur footprint cast is going to go on display. So when it does, if and when it does, we will pop that into an update and hopefully you can go and check it out. But that's not the only. We've got an Austrian man discovering mammoth bones in a wine cellar, which is an odd way to put together. Right, Jilsey, do I have to go into the no touchy touch territory? We are not. Jurassic Park is not aspirational. It's a cautionary tale. Jurassic Park is a cautionary tale. Jessie's got future arcs rediscovering things, which then becomes, as Makeup Monarchy points out, the round table of farts, which, let's be honest, a 3-year-old to 4-year-old would find hilarious. Certainly my son finds the word fart hilarious. We could be on something here. We could be onto something. Steve, you're absolutely right. Paleontologists do only have a very small amount of skeleton to create a reconstruction from. And even things that are on display, they have had to piece back together. When it comes to the colouring of dinosaurs, which ones may or may not have feathers or fur or whatever else, there are big questions around that. I like dinky diggers. That's cute. And diminutive diggers, that's cute too. But I am round table of farts is currently tickling my funny bone, I'll be honest. Right, so a man is renovating his wine cellar in Austria and he finds the remains of prehistoric mammoth. He is a winemaker and he came across a number of huge bones in the village of Gobelsberg, which is in Krems, west of Vienna. He told the authorities about the find, who then came and identified the bones to be at least 3 Stone Age mammoths. He said, quote, "I thought it was just a piece of wood left by my grandfather, but then I dug it out a bit, and I remember that in the past, my grandfather said he found teeth, and then I immediately thought it was a mammoth." How fascinating. The bones are believed to be between 30 and 40,000 years old. And as we can see, there is now a dig going underway. During the excavation there, the cellars in question were completely cleared out. Other comparable sites in Austria and neighbouring countries were mostly excavated at least 100 years ago and have been largely lost to modern research. They are now investigating this find using modern methods rather than ones from 100 years ago. The researchers point out, we know that humans hunted mammoths, but we still know very little about how they did it. When they've excavated these bones, they are going to be taken to the Vienna Museum of Natural History, presumably for more study and perhaps to go on display. As and when we get more information, I will, of course, pass that on. Shane, we could call the archaeologists mini Dr. Kat's global brethren, which I will acknowledge has the kind of culty ring to it that I do enjoy. Because who doesn't, in their spare time, aspire to be a megalomaniacal cult leader? Just me? Just me? Fluffy, imagine finding a mammoth. I would also never get over it. I would also be telling everybody forever. It would be my claim to fame. They'd be like, "So what do you do?" Well, 15 years ago, I found a mammoth. So you win. Jessie, the working title is my Dr. Kat's round table of farts. I don't know why I've become their leader. I've done literally nothing. They're all out digging in the dirt with like a parent or a grandparent. Kindergarteners. Yes, we could give them all kinder surprises. Obviously not in America. It's illegal there. But we could give them all kinder surprises. That would be good. Oh, the League of Extraordinary Farts. Delicious. It's just X-Man-y enough, plus culty. Delightful. Delightful. The League of Extraordinary Farts. I'm sorry, what, Scarlet? A Sony Discman rocked up in a museum recently. Design museum? Tech museum? I feel like I'm being reduced to dust as we speak. A prehistoric monument has been found in France. This is a 15-acre site that has been found. This is just 12 miles southeast of Dijon. And they have found this 15-acre site with the remnants of numerous enclosures and scattered relics dating to disparate eras, from prehistory through the early Iron Age, 1200 to 500 BCE. We are told, quote, "This type of monument seems unprecedented and currently no comparison has been possible." The excavations there concluded in February, and the most visually compelling subject the team is examining is a potentially prehistoric network of interlocking enclosures. The circular one in the centre measuring over 36 feet in diameter. There's then a horseshoe-shaped enclosure jutting off over 26 feet to the north, as well as an open-ended southern appendage. Don't be dirty. Just me. So we can see there, it is looking absolutely fascinating. And we've got some finds as well. We've got various spearheads or arrowheads going on there. 7 flint arrowheads, 2 archer's braces, a flint lighter, and a copper alloy dagger, which have been dated tentatively to the Bell Beaker period. This was found just below the topsoil, so this is really, really fascinating. And then about 1,300 feet away, in the final necropolis, they found 6 urns from the early Iron Age. That's the one that's 1200 to 500 BCE. Each of these were covered with a lid, filled with single bone deposit, and in some instances, metal jewellery. These are cremated bones that are now undergoing examination to learn more about Iron Age funerary practices. The team doing the excavation noted that small necropolises like these, measuring 1,000 square feet, are already difficult to identify. But this is also the first time any such complex has been excavated in this part of France. There is going to be further study to place this find within its historical context. So fascinating. And as and when we get more information, I will, of course, share that out and about. Hearing about people's the apparently museum exhibits people have working at their own homes. Steve's got an Atari. Julesie's got a PlayStation 2. That doesn't feel old. We've got a Wii. We've got like a first generation Wii. We don't play it anymore, but we've got a Wii. Julesie's also got a brick, a 1990s brick. Fabulous. It's one of those that you could change the face of it. Sharon's got a working microwave from 1977. Here's the thing. My mum and my grandma, for the longest time, had like these massive fridge freezers. I believe they were American company. And those buggers were older than me. They were so much. There was no built-in obsolescence. So you could have a microwave that lasts from 1977. It's not going to happen now. Nothing's lasted that length of time now, is it? Shane, you don't get quality like that anymore. You absolutely don't. Can you imagine somebody telling you that they have got a microwave that is 40 years old? Could you imagine somebody telling you their microwave is 20 years old? I'd be like, and it still works? Make Monarchy still got a Super Nintendo? Stuart's still got a GameCube. I'll be honest with you, I don't know a lot about gaming. But I've heard of that, so it it must be old. Ancient Mycenaean armor has been tested by Marines and pronounced suitable for extended combat. This is the sort of history that I love because this is experimental archaeology. Sorry, Shane, your dryer is over 30 years old? Never sell it. Whatever fairy pixie magic is making that function for 30 years. Good Lord. Good Lord, that's fabulous. So this famous Mycenaean suit of armor was not just ceremonial, but suitable for extended combat. There's been a study published the 22nd of May in an open access journal. This is one of the oldest suits of European armor. It dates to about 3,500 years ago, and it was found near ancient Mycenae, which is the modern day village of Dendra. It was discovered in 1960. So since then, there have been questions about what it was for. 13 volunteers from the Marines of the Hellenic Armed Forces have been equipped with replicas of the Dendra armor and Bronze Age weapons. They then ran through an 11-hour simulated Bronze Age combat protocol. I hope that got taped, because seeing that would be so cool. This simulation was developed based upon historical accounts from Homer's Iliad, along with additional physiological and environmental evidence, in order to create an approximation of the typical diet, activities, and maneuvers of the Mycenaean military. This was done, and the results suggest that the Dendra armor was battle-worthy, implying that the Mycenaeans' powerful impact in Mediterranean history was due partly to their armor technology. The authors of this study have also developed a freely available software which enables simulation of combat conditions to test the hypothetical efficacy of armor in more varied scenarios. Further research into this combat technology, the Mycenaean combat technology, will, it's hope, continue to illuminate details of the late Bronze Age and the transition into the Iron Age. Jessie is asking, did they wear that while sitting on the horse? Well, it appears that the way they're using it here, it looks like this is foot combat. From my knowledge of later armor, that top bit would theoretically also be able to function well on a horse. I wonder whether you would need that very, very built up gorget, or I don't even know if it's a gorget at that point, lower face covering. It's more than that, isn't it? I do wonder if you would need that if you were on top of a horse and cavalry charging, mostly because the weapons tend to be different when you're doing that, and you probably want more either top of the head protection, all over face protection. But theoretically, I can't see the bottom of it. Theoretically, this could be somebody on a horse, but that doesn't seem to be how they're simulating here. It looks to me like they're simulating foot combat. Steve said it's probably for charioteers. Yes, I can definitely see that. Although they aren't being visualized here in chariots. So I'm wondering. I assume they would have tested that. Have to check it out. Archaeological excavations unearthed the first great Iberian city in Contestania, and it's apparently also the oldest one. These are archaeologists from the universities of Alicante and Murcia. They have uncovered the architectural ruins of Iberia's principal city, and in doing so, they have provided invaluable information about Iberian society and the historical context. Despite the absence of archaeological remnants to corroborate the degree of Iberian society's complexity and development, researchers were already aware of the site's significance due to early discoveries, one of which included the well-known sculpture of the Lady of Elche, which is what we can see here, which is just, what a fabulous display of adornment, headpiece, what clearly looks to be like various necklaces. Isn't that fabulous? This, as they point out, this sculpture does stand out without a doubt, but the architectural remains were necessary because that explains the importance of the Iberian group that settled there and would allow researchers to understand how society at that time functioned. So they do this dig, and they have found, in addition to city walls, 8 rooms identified that belonged to houses attached to the foundational wall, demonstrating that Ilici was one of the most important cities in the Iberian region of Contestania. This area encompasses parts of present-day provinces known as Alicante, Murcia, Albacete, and Valencia. It therefore confirms that La Alcudia was home to the first metropolis, the first major Iberian city in this place. Steve, on the previous one, the reason he says charioteers is that that's the warfare Homer describes the leaders using. And as they're going on Homer, then that logically makes sense. It is just a bit weird to me that in the pictures we're seeing, that looks very much like foot combat that's going on there. But of course, I suppose it could be still charioteers in close quarters. Well, I will have to check it out. These findings have helped to clarify everyday life in the city and have offered context for the Iberian elites who commissioned sculptures like the one we see here. It's thought that this site was abandoned because of frequent flooding, and that also explains why the remains they have found are so well preserved. The house's interiors were filled before departing, which helped preserve the buildings and let archaeologists find out the unusual building techniques like the use of moulded mud or adobe walls. I'll be honest, I don't really know what an adobe wall is. Whenever I think of adobe, I think of Photoshop. I'm assuming it's a technique that I need to look into. The excavation phase has been completed and the site has been covered for its protection. And now what's going to happen is there's going to be some lab analysis of the pieces that are found, and they are gearing up for another campaign to excavate the dwellings and extend that excavation into the interior of the settlement so they can get a more complete view of the oldest Iberian phases of this sector. Scarlet points out, is it me or is that headline a tad redundant? If it's the first great city, then doesn't it follow that it's the oldest? Well, I see where you're coming from, but by saying it's the first great city, you may have to specify it's also the oldest, because there could be older cities, but not great cities. There are some cities in my country that are old, but not great. I mean, surely a quick way of putting it would have been like they've unearthed the oldest and greatest Iberian city, but they've not said that. Jessie's explained what adobe is. It's a type of dried clay used in very dry regions. Thank you very much for that additional context. Next up, a teacher has found a stone with ancient Ogham writing from Ireland in a Coventry garden. Robin's got further. Adobe is a building style common to the US Southwest. The walls are super thick and the result is cool interiors in the desert. It's ancient. Oh, fascinating. Thank you for that. Very fascinating. Cool. So this Ogham stone has been found by a geography teacher who was tidying his overgrown garden in Coventry. It's a rectangular sandstone rock inscribed in Ogham. This is an alphabet used in the early medieval period, primarily for writing in the Irish language. The gentleman who found it, Graham Senior, said, I was just clearing a flower bed of weeds and stones when I saw this thing, and I thought, that's not natural. That's not scratchings of an animal. It can't have been more than 4 or 5 inches below the surface. He then washed it and consulted a relative of his who was an archaeologist, who in turn said, contact the Portable Antiquity Scheme, which you must do if you find things that could be of treasure value. And the Finds Liaison Officer for Staffordshire and West Mids, who's based at Birmingham Museums, said, quote, this is an amazing find. The beauty of the Portable Antiquity Scheme is that people are finding stuff that keeps rewriting our history. This particular find has given us new insight into early medieval activity in Coventry, which we still need to make sense of. Each find like this helps in filling in our jigsaw puzzle and gives us a bit more information. We are told that such stones were, quote, very rare and have generally been found in Ireland or Scotland. So to find them in the Midlands is actually unusual. It could perhaps be linked to people coming over from Ireland to early medieval monasteries in the area. The stone is 11 centimetres long and weighs 139 grams. It's been inscribed on 3 of its 4 sides. It's suggested that it could have been a portable commemorative item, but they don't know. They point out that this find was made not far from the rivers Sow, and thus it could have perhaps linked to that river being a major transport route. The rock is going to be put on display at the Herbert Art Gallery and Museum in Coventry, where the person who found it, Graham Senior, has donated it permanently. And it's going to feature in the forthcoming Collecting Coventry exhibition that has already opened. It opened on the 11th of May. So if you're in Coventry, check it out, see what you think, and hopefully we'll find out more about what it was for. Julesy, they are described this as an item that may have been used for ritual purposes by a monk. There we go. Yes. Jessie asks, has it been translated? So the inscription, we're told, the first part relates to a person's name, Mael Dumkyle. The second part is, however, less certain. Perhaps a location, and then, so this person from this place had me made. Maybe it's supposed to be an embossed paperweight. Maybe it's like one of those name tags for a corporate desk, but like monk style. We'll see. Scarlet says, I'm about an hour's drive from Coventry. Well, if you get over there, let us know what you think. If you see a little stone. Robin suggests it's a prehistoric credit card. I mean, why not? Julesy points out that it does look a little bit like a coprolite. A new structure has been discovered near the pyramids at Giza. This L-shaped structure has been identified using ground-penetrating technology. So a team of researchers have scanned the sand in a, quote, blank area of Giza's Western Cemetery. The Western Cemetery is apparently, according to researchers, quote, an important burial place for members of the royal family and high-class officers. It's densely populated with a type of tomb with rectangular funerary chapels that give way to shafts connected to underground burial chambers. However, there is this blank space in the centre of the cemetery with no above-ground structures on which no noteworthy excavations have been conducted. Starting in 2021 and going on for 2 years, geophys was done with a combination of ground-penetrating radar and electrical resistivity tomography, ERT, resistivity tomography, to see under the surface. They think that these anomalies might be vertical walls of limestone or shafts leading to a tomb structure. They then made a further series of surveys using another kind of ground penetrating radar to determine the shape of this anomaly. This is an L-shaped structure, according to this, roughly 33 by 49 feet, that was 6.5 feet below ground. Researchers are still unsure as to what the purpose of this was, perhaps a tomb entrance or a construction site that was later backfilled with sand. Nevertheless, it does seem to be connected to another 33 by 33 foot structure, which is up to 33 feet beneath the ground. That's a lot of 33s. Until they get a chance to excavate it, the function of that does remain, however, unclear. So we will see if we find out more about that. If we do, when we do, I will, of course, let you know. I've had a lot of emails about the news that the Grand Museum, the new Egyptian museum, is finished and set to open. And I've seen journalists reviewing it. I've seen influencers go around it. So there's something there. When you go onto the website, so far, to find the opening date, nada, zip, zilch, not a clue. Don't know what's going on there. I keep an eye on it. I go back periodically, sporadically, to try and see what's happening with the new museum in Egypt. It appears to be finished. They have been showing people around. I don't know when this thing is opening. Not a clue. But if and when we do find out, I will, of course, include it in my events and exhibitions. I've said that, and now there's going to be news that it opens tomorrow. That's what's going to happen because I've said it. Staying with Egypt, scientists believe they might have solved a mystery behind Egypt's pyramids, namely how 31 pyramids were built more than 4,000 years ago. A research team from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, has discovered that the pyramids were likely to have been built along a long-lost ancient branch of the River Nile, which is now hidden under deserts and farmland. Archaeologists have previously thought that Egyptians must have used a nearby waterway to transport materials such as the stone blocks that were needed to build the pyramids on the river. But until recently, no one was certain of the location, the shape, the size, or proximity of this mega waterway to the actual pyramids. A group of researchers used radar satellite imagery, historical maps, geophys, and sediment coring to map the river branch. They believe that it was buried by a major drought and sandstorms thousands of years ago. They have, however, been able to penetrate the sand surface and produce images of hidden features. Among those features were buried rivers and ancient structures, running at the foothills of where the vast majority of ancient Egyptian pyramids lie. One of the co-authors of the study, Dr. Suzanne Onstein, said locating the actual river branch and having the data that shows there was a waterway that could be used for the transportation of heavier blocks, equipment, people, everything, really helps to explain pyramid constructions. They found this river branch named the Aramat branch, with Aramat meaning pyramid in Arabic, was roughly 64 kilometers or 39 miles long and between 200 to 700 meters or 656 to 2,296 feet wide. This river bordered 31 pyramids, which were all built between 4,700 and 3,700 years ago. Because of the proximity of this river branch to the pyramid complexes, it's thought that it was active and operational during the construction phase of these pyramids. The Egyptians could have used the energy of the river to carry the blocks rather than human labor, which would have meant that it was a lot less effort. So that is very interesting and going a long way to explain how this stuff was done. Robin, great question. Do they think the ancient builders might have dug the waterway itself? I haven't seen that mentioned in the articles I've looked at. That would be very interesting. I would assume they would find evidence if it was man-made, and if it was, no doubt we will hear about it. But yes, I haven't seen anything on that sort yet. Continuing, an ancient Egyptian mummy that has been held at an Australian high school for a century has had its face reconstructed. This mummified head was displayed in a school library in Australia. I don't know why. And apparently nor do they. They don't know how this object arrived at Grafton High School in New South Wales. There's a century-old note saying that it was from a, quote, genuine Egyptian mummy. It's now going to be displayed alongside a 3D printed sculptures based on medical scans and forensic techniques. The forensic sculpture of this piece said it takes the emphasis off the human remains. That's very important because museums are more and more reluctant to display the remains of ancient people, as I believe they should be. The Australian Broadcast Corporation, ABC, said the head was donated to the school in 1915 after being either gifted by a local doctor who may have purchased it while he was a medical student in Scotland, or by a local man who was a famous Egyptologist. So hence we're unsure of how this got here. We are told the school had previously used the head as an educational tool, and it has been rebuffed when it attempted to repatriate it to Egypt or to donate it to a museum in Sydney. Unsure of why, perhaps because the provenance wasn't very clear. So what's happened is there have been scans made, and this artist has been called in, this sculptor, to reconstruct the face. We are told that one of the next projects for the artist is to reconstruct the faces of skulls that were found at Herculaneum. This is the town near Mount Vesuvius that, like Pompeii, was destroyed in the eruption. So we may also be seeing from this same artist the faces of people who lost their lives at Herculaneum. And I will say, I've made my views on human remains on display very clear. I do think that this image, this sculpture is very beautiful. I think there's a lot of humanity that's here. I do find what look to be finger waves, like 1920s flapper finger waves on the hair, to be an interesting choice. But I think the face is very beautiful. The hair, maybe if I saw it up close, I'd understand it more. But the hair to me looks like a 20s flapper style with little finger waves. On to Roman finds. We've got some Amanda. I apologise. I did schedule this and make it public this morning. I'm sorry that YouTube is being a little stinker. Scarlet asks, who beheads mummies? Possibly Australian Egyptologists and or medical students in Scotland. Adds plus some more, maybe. Kerry asks, why is Egyptian art from side views? I don't know. I'm not an Egyptologist. I don't know why they're in those side-on postures. But then when we think about the sort of profile of coins, which we have, why are monarchs always in profile on the coins now? I don't know. Does anybody know why that would be? Mummies were ground up and used in medicine. They were, absolutely. And they were also, as Jessie points out, part of paint. Suzanne points out the last few dynasties in Egypt were Greek, so that kind of hairstyle isn't too far out of the realm of possible. Yeah, I suppose. I just thought there was kind of more braiding involved than what looks like a 20s finger wave. I mean, I'm happy to be corrected. I'm by no means an Egyptologist. Do we think that's a Grecian style hairdo? Are we calling that? Do we think that's Grecian? I mean, I suppose it could be. Maybe I'm just misreading it. But I saw it and went, that's not the person that found the mummy's head and brought it to the school rather than the mummy itself. So we have got a Roman Cupid figurine with bit that's been found among items unearthed near a new road. This artifact is alongside other artifacts dating back 12,000 years during roadworks in the Cotswolds. They have found pottery, nail clippers, coins, jewellery, all of which are going to have gone on display. They went on display on the 11th of May at Gloucester's Guildhall. The pieces date from the Mesolithic, Neolithic, Bronze Age, Iron Age, Roman periods, and the Second World War. So a very vast variety of stuff going on there. Suzanne talking about the Egyptian head. It would help to see it in profile because a lot of it is how the back is dressed, isn't it? Because that kind of waving down there, if it's with a very ornate sort of bun at the back, that feels Egyptian-y, Greco-Roman-y. I can definitely see that. I suppose I see that front bit and I think that's a bob, which is obviously not necessarily the look that would have been going on. Amanda points out, perhaps in the sideways profile, she saw a documentary about Egyptian art, and the choice to have them on profile is about a superstition of depictions of people having power over those depicted. Cool. So they have been excavating in this one. They've been excavating an area of 355,000 square meters. There's been 60 archaeologists and 50 office-based specialists. There's been over 100,000 working hours excavating and curating over 10,600 artifacts, weighing in at 100 kilograms, all of which are going to be preserved for future generations. So we can see here this item that looks a little bit like it's got a baseball bat top is a Roman nail clipper. Isn't that fabulous? This scheme has been featured on BBC Two series Digging for Britain, so you can check out what's going on there as well. How cool is that? Sticking with the Roman finds and continuing on, we have got an ancient Roman gold. Stuart said about the previous one, that is a huge dig. That site, that number of archaeologists and office-based staff, that is a mammoth undertaking, but not a mammoth. We have got a site at Alderney. They have found an ancient gold coin dating to the late 4th century when Valens was the emperor. This coin, understandably, helped to pin down the time period when the site was occupied by the Romans. The dig also located and included an Iron Age site. What the coin helps to do is it adds to a picture of the intensive Roman settlement that was there. The Iron Age specialist who was part of this dig, Mr. de Jersey, said that he hoped he'd now be able to continue to dig beyond the Roman settlement to find evidence of settlers from the Iron Age onwards on this site. The Iron Age site was previously discovered during construction of a golf course in the 1960s. There is a hope that more Frankish material could be found, as this is a period of the Channel Islands history that was known very little about. This dig went on until the 24th of May. So as and when more information comes out of that, as it's literally just wrapped up, I will, of course, update you and let you know what's been going on there. A 440-pound sculpture, which I think is heavy. As we know, I'm bad at weights and distances. A 440-pound sculpture used as a ritual table by the Mayans has been discovered in Mexico. This is less than a year after a massive ancient stone carving was discovered in Western Mexico. This is now on display for the first time. So it's 440 pounds and it's about 3 feet long and 2.5 feet tall. Jessie says a kilo is about 2.2 pounds, which may be helpful for people who know what weights do. Is it big heavy or light big? Thank you. 440 pounds is about as heavy as 2 or 3 people. And as I think we should measure all weights in this. It's apparently about the weight of a full-grown tiger. Why don't we measure more things in animals? So a full-grown tiger weight of sculpture has been located. It is carved from augite andesite, which is a dark black porous volcanic stone. It was brought to researchers after it was found dismantled, and it has been preserved, cleaned, and restored to its original shape and colour. And what's amazing, I mean, I know the photographs aren't massively cleared, but I can't see if it was dismantled. I'm not sure where the break points were, but clearly they say there have been some. They aren't sure of the origin of the chakmuls. A few have been found in the archaeological record. We are told that only 70 pieces have ever been found, and one hasn't been found in this region in Mexico since 1938. It's hoped, now it's so well preserved, that it's going to shed light on how these sculptures were used and how this art form was created all those centuries ago. It's now on display at the Museum of Popular Art and Industries at Pátzcuaro, which is in southwest Mexico, about a 230-mile drive west from Mexico City. So if you are I was going to say if you're near Mexico City, but it's 230 miles away from Mexico City. So no, if you're 230 miles away from Mexico City and you get a chance to go and check this out, then isn't it fascinating? What an absolutely amazing piece. And it's wild they say they've had to reconstruct it. Where were the breaks? Really interesting. And I hope we find out what the purpose was. Amazing. Having some, I mean, so there is no doubt there's going to be a discussion of ritual purposes because it's an object we aren't sure what it does. So ritual purposes is going to come up because of course it is. Staying with ritual purposes, archaeologists have rediscovered the remains of the reliquary of St. Swithin in a crypt beneath Stavanger Cathedral. St. Swithin was the Anglo-Saxon Bishop of Winchester. He was made Bishop of Winchester by Athelwulf, King of Wessex. He has a reputation for posthumous miracle working. Apparently, the most famous of these being the restoration of a basket of eggs that workmen had maliciously broken. St. Swithin's death is recorded in the Canterbury manuscript of the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle under the year 861. In the centuries that follow, his body was then split between a number of shrines. There are more than 40 churches dedicated to St Swithin across southern England and western Norway, including this one at Stavanger Cathedral in the city of Stavanger. If I pronounced that wrong, I apologise. During the Reformation, idols of Catholic superstition were removed and destroyed. It is thought that St Swithin's reliquary was taken to Denmark, where it was melted down. In 2023, a 700-year-old ivory figure of Melchior, one of the three wise men, was discovered in the crypts beneath the cathedral. This then resulted in there being an excavation by archaeologists from the university, and they found a gilded copper plate measuring 5 by 10 centimeters. And there was also a gilded silver medallion with an animal motif and several decorative glass gems. They then x-rayed the copper plate, and it clearly reveals a church building with a tower, roof, columns, and windows. They therefore think that it's likely the remains of the reliquary of St Swithin. In this excavation, they also found gilded fragments of liturgical objects, pieces from the cathedral stained glass window, the papal seal of Boniface VIII, hundreds of coins and bracteates, and a woven gold band from the fine vestments of a church official. Is this evidence of a crypto-Catholic desire to preserve the objects and items of faith in Sweden? I wonder. Sorry, in Norway, rather. Is this evidence of a desire to hide this in Norway? The Urbach, items like this in England were presumably, almost certainly hidden, not just during the reign of Henry VIII, but in subsequent reigns, particularly in the reigns of his children Edward and Elizabeth, when faith goes underground, or in the walls of houses, in priest hides and things like that. Yes, these items like this were certainly hidden in various places, and there was an exhibition at the British Museum, and the book that accompanied it connected to Shakespeare's Restless World, the book, and they found priests' vestments for doing Roman Catholic communion services. They relocated a relic, Edward Alcorn's eye. So people were making new relics as well of people who were, in their mind, persecuted martyrs for the faith. So there was definitely, in Reformation, Counter-Reformation, and then Re-Reformation England, a thriving trade in the creation of relics, but also in the preservation and hiding of relics as and when they could. Kerry asked, would they be executed if they're found in a property? Well, the houses that had priest hides within them, certainly, and that's very much a kind of later Elizabethan issue. The Jesuits start coming into England on their mission in the later part of Elizabeth's reign, especially the decade around a decade after her excommunication by the Pope. And all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but over time, that potential claim that Elizabeth makes, that she's not seeking to make windows into men's hearts, that she's reportedly said to have made at the start of her reign, essentially outward conformity is all that is expected. Following the excommunication by the Pope, and then the rise of the Jesuits arriving in this country, the policy certainly changes, and I think understandably in some respects, because I think the threat level goes up, and the presence of Jesuits hiding in the homes of her Catholic nobility, particularly as a lot of them are placed in the north of the country, so away from, I suppose, the heart of her government, is deeply threatening. And it's the very fact of their faith puts devout Roman Catholics on a collision course with treason. It's purely and simply because if it is treason to deny, as Henry VIII says it was, it's treason to deny the royal supremacy over the church. If you are a devout Roman Catholic, you can do nothing but deny the supremacy because you believe the Pope is the head of the church. So yes, if you were found harbouring certainly Roman Catholic priests and presumably the accoutrement that go with them, it could be very dangerous for you and for the priest. So I wonder if what we're seeing beneath this church, it's one of two. Clearly, these items been destroyed and just buried in like a midden or equivalent of a midden, or is this an attempt at preservation? I wonder. Julesy, yes, there were certainly fines on offer for people who don't turn up to church, for example. William Shakespeare's father gets in trouble for not rocking up to church, which is one of the reasons why people suggest that William Shakespeare one of the many reasons people suggest that William Shakespeare might have been a covert or crypto Catholic, because his father gets done and fined for not turning up to church. However, the flip side of that is that his father owed people money. And if you turn up to church, people can find you because they know where you are. A rare collection of centuries-old fabric and shoes have been found in Poland. There's going to be a film centre being built in Poland, and when the site was excavated in preparation, they have found people excavating found long strips of clothing and the soles of shoes poking out from the surface. This site is in Turan, which is a city that was once at the centre of trade and connections between the East and the West. This is during the period of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth of the 16th and 17th century. The fabric and shoes belong to outfits that are said to be hundreds of years old, and it's thought they are perhaps the largest collection ever to be found in Europe. The collection includes silk fabric, fragments of pleated dresses, floral ornaments, and entire shoes in 2 different styles. They've got butterflies for holding spurs, they've got shoes with cutouts, and the trimmings from the necklines of clothing. We are told this clothing is comparatively very well preserved, and has now been found in larger sets than ever before. We are informed that there have been similar artifacts found across Europe, in Amsterdam, London, Gdansk, Elbląg, Wrocław, Lubeck, Riga, and other cities. They have found woolen stockings, 1 or 2 at a time, at a site in Turon. But at the site in Turon, 11 stockings have been discovered. The majority of them are being preserved. I can't see those stockings on show here. What we have on display here, the picture in the middle, is woolen clothing and a piece of silk. And then over to the right, you've got a fabulous shoe. This represents the era when men first started to wear heeled shoes, we are told. Some of the shoes follow a more Western style, while others belong to Eastern trends. We're told the quality of the fabric and the leather is proof that these were made by a proper workman and might have been made on the outskirts of the town for the city's high social classes. There is also a woolen glove that might, it's been said, have belonged to a member of the clergy. It's made from woolen yarn and lined with silk, which I think would only be done for someone who is a high-up officer in the church, according to this release. They've also found pieces of heels that would have marked the beginning of heel wearing, which was done first by men to slim down their figure and appear taller. And of course, if you're in the mood to show off your well-turned calf, having a little heel is very helpful for that. This site is in central Poland along the Vistula River. And there's been very little written about this area during this particular period of history. So the clothing is something that might start opening up the narrative of this period and extending it out. Shane asked, when did stocks and pillories go out of fashion? That is an excellent question. I mean, they're still very much in use in the Georgian period. That is a very interesting. Julesy wonders if it was Victorian period when they moved inside. Kinky. Yes. I'm not sure. I will look into that. That's a very good question, because there was, of course, certainly in the UK, a few years ago now, there was something that was referred to as being the modern version of the stocks, or that public shaming, whereby people in certain locales who had been given an ASBO, an antisocial behaviour order, had their face blown up onto a poster and put on like a pole in the town, like a big, I suppose, circular billboard of shame, which I know is not the same as a pillory, but it is in a way. Back, stocks and pillories were used in the American West into the 19th century, according to various American historic sites. That's very interesting. I wonder if that's the same over here. My husband says that pillorying has never gone out of fashion. We just can't run away from the police quickly anymore. Thank you, darling. Jessie says it was 1932 when stocks and pillories stopped being used in the US. I've got no idea when they stopped being used in the UK. That's very interesting. Okay. I will look into that. Thank you for the fabulous question. Maybe I'll do a video on public shaming. Explorers searched for 7 years before finally finding a legendary hermit's treasure. Antony Jagowitz lived a dubious life in the Polish mountain in the 1700s, amassing a collection of wealth that was recently discovered by explorers. Oh, hang on a second. Jessie says, another search says they're not being used in the UK, but have not actually been abolished either. Is this one of the ones, because we did away with a whole bunch of, frankly, unhinged laws a few decades ago, one of which included shooting a Welshman with a crossbow in a particular part in a walled city of somewhere or other that used to be legal, and they just quietly went, that's unhinged, we're going to get rid of all of that sort of stuff. Julesy wonders if it's when slavery was abolished in England. Well, England might have, technically, slavery was never legal in England, although England absolutely profited from the triangular trade. There was a saying that the air of England was too pure for a slave to breathe. So thus, anybody on English soil was a free person. That didn't, of course, mean that people weren't enslaved in England, but it was technically never legal here. And on the shooting the Welshman, my husband points out it's in the walls of Chester and only after dark. So, yes, Scarlet points that out. Yes, Chester, you're absolutely right. This is a treasure trove of medieval coins linked to Antoni Jackowitz, one of Poland's most infamous hermit criminals. Now there is a job, a future career to seek for. A hermit criminal, one of the most famous hermit criminals from 1700s. An exploration group has been exploring the mountains for roughly 7 years. And they have just found a yield of ancient coins. E.T., obviously not illegal in any of the colonies, which was a heck of a workaround. Oh, absolutely. The hypocrisy is real. They found a series of coins buried in groups dated from the 17th and 18th century. They have found aughts, sixes, patagoons, krikers, and kopecks. They also found a gold Hamburg ducat from 1648 with an image of the Madonna holding a child. This coin had a hole punched into it, which makes people think the researchers think it was once worn as a medallion. During a plague at the start of the Great Northern War, Jackowitz sold himself as someone with healing powers given to him directly by the Mother of God. His scam garnered large numbers of donations. These fraudulent gains, he had to try and protect his fraudulent gains from bandits who were looking to plunder his loot. Not only did he want to keep this money from defrauding people, he then sent his guards to rob travelling pilgrims and raid surrounding properties. He was captured, but then escaped his first sentencing. He was then recaptured and sentenced to life in prison in 1712. Just 4 years after his criminal behaviour took root in these mountains. Even being imprisoned with his guards disbanded, his loot was never unearthed. The find in question has been turned over to the Polish Ministry of Science and Higher Education and has since been given to the Historical and Archaeological Museum in Ostrog-Swietogorski with the intention of preserving the coins while they undergo analysis. It's thought this might not be the only treasure in the area, and they think that they might be able to find more stuff nearby. So they hopefully are going to be digging around. We shall see. Revolutionary War barracks burned by the British have been discovered in Colonial Williamsburg. Correct me if I'm wrong. Colonial Williamsburg has a really strong tradition of historic interpretation on site. Is that correct? Kerry asked about the previous news story. Who gets the money from the find? I don't know how treasure discovery works other places other than the UK. I don't know if there is a finder's fee when a museum acquires or purchases something that has been determined to be treasure. I don't know how that works in the rest of the world. So if anybody does know, then please let me know. Yes, so I have people saying Julesy, Paige, Marianne, and Shelley point out that yes, they do have historic interpretation on site. I have heard very good things about their historic interpretation program. If I get the chance to go out to the States, it will be one of the places that I would like to hit up. I also, because I believe there's also interpretation at Plymouth Rock. So Colonial Williamsburg, Plymouth Rock, and some Ren fairs. Count me in. Count me in. E.T. says you went to Williamsburg in the late 80s and they were doing interpretation then. That's fabulous. That's the kind of almost the kind of dawning age of historic interpretation in sites. That's really cool. So they have found during excavations these military barracks. 18th century maps of the sites, which is have found evidence that military housing existed near what is now a visitor centre. Excavations began last year, and they have found bricks which would have been used to build the structures between 1776 and 1777. This coincided with the Revolutionary War, which went from 1775 to 1783. The site itself is 3 to 4 acres, which is 1.2 to 1.6 hectares in site, which could be big or not. I don't know what those numbers mean. Let me know. Is that bigly or not bigly? We've got here a picture of a belt buckle that was found, one of the several artifacts found at the site. These barracks were large enough to house up to 2,000 soldiers and 100 horses. I'm wondering, is that a lot of people in a small space, or would they have been fairly spaced out? Let me know. If anybody knows what an acre or a hectare is, there we go. They also, during the excavation, they found a variety of artifacts, gun hardware, ceramics, and soldiers' personal adornments like this belt buckle. They also found a glass button. They found lead shot riddled with teeth marks. Often soldiers would chew on the lead since it tasted sweet. No, don't do that. Lead poisoning is bad. The site is currently covered up to preserve the artifacts during the construction of a sports complex nearby. Right, what have we got here? Marianne says there's lots of interpretation at Canadian historical sites as well. Fabulous. Yes, I've watched her stuff. I haven't seen Sophia Nygaard's historical interpretation. I have seen her other stuff, most of her makeup stuff. I will check that out. That'd be cool. The King Arthur Ren Fair this fall. Alas, I don't think I'm going to make anything over this year, as I will, in autumn, I will either be enormously pregnant or I will have a newborn. So I'm probably not going to get on a plane, but soon. The Bristol Ren Fair in Wisconsin, Tudor themed. Oh, delicious. Delicious. Jessie points out that 2,000 people in 4 acres is a lot of people. Okay, so it would be fairly cramped, plus the ponies. I love how people are giving me differences, different values of what's going on with this space. I don't know what any of these things mean. I don't know how big a square foot is. I don't know how big a square meter is. I have no idea. I can barely tell you what a meter is. If you said, show me a meter in your hands, I couldn't do it. I haven't got a concept of distance or space or height. No clue. Not a clue. I like bigly or smally. It's Paige. It's big. It's big. Jessie says, I lived on 20 acres for 7 years. I would not want 2,000 people on that land, let alone cramming them into 4 acres of it. Okay. So it would have been a tight squish. A tight old squish. I love how everyone's trying to help me. I can't visualize a football field either. I'll be honest with you. I don't like sport. Don't worry, I mean I do. I don't like outdoor sports. And when I see a football field, it's on the telly. Fluffy monkey M. What is distance? I do not know it. It's when I'm trying to drive somewhere. If you tell me how many hours it will take me to drive a place, then I have a rough estimate. I've got no sense of direction, no sense of geography, and no sense of space, time, or distance. No idea. Which is weird because I'm quite good at working in 3 dimensions when it comes to like building stuff. I love a bit of flat pack. So I have that. I can follow instructions. Can't. I don't understand measurements. My husband's just gone, when do you watch football on TV? Unwillingly, when you have it on, James. That's when. That's when. Smaller than a supermarket with a parking lot. pages. An acre is about 8,700 ms. Good Lord. That would be the vulgarest space. That would be like a vortex of vulgar. So, as and when we find out more about this site and the finds there, I will, of course, let you know. Soldier graffiti potentially is showing Napoleon being hanged. This is at Dover Castle. If you haven't ever had a chance to go to Dover Castle and you get the chance to go to Dover Castle. It is so cool. It's such a cool place. Earlier this year, staff were scaling a ladder at the top of St. John's Tower and they found the graffiti, which is thought to date back to the 1789 French Revolution. This has been found on a scratched wooden door. More than 50 pieces of graffiti on the relic include at least 9 gruesome hangings, according to English Heritage. They are the people who look after Dover Castle. This July at the castle is going to be an exhibition in which this door will be on display. The senior properties historian Paul Patterson said, what makes this door an extraordinary object is that it's a rare and precious example of the ordinary person making their mark, whether that be simply for the purpose of killing time or wanting to be remembered. The carvings, which date from between 1789 to 1855, include a ship and a symbol of a glass chalice with a cross, which might represent the Christian Holy Communion. It's thought the ship in question was likely an 8-gun cutter. This is a fast vessel used by the Royal Navy Revenue Service, smugglers and privateers. One hanging showing a man in military uniform and a bicorn or two-cornered hat could show a real hanging or be a representation of Napoleon himself, who died in exile after an illness in 1821. We are told that 6 to 12 men would have guarded this tower at any one time, with 1 or 2 in the tower itself. English Heritage said, with tensions high but hours to kill, it seemed they put their, quote, questionable artistic talents to use, using knives or bayonets to carve the graffiti. There has been graffiti found at other English heritage sites, including Richmond Castle, Audley End House in Essex, and Deal Castle in Kent. Oh, Katherine, I mentioned Plymouth Rock, but it's Plymouth Plantation. The latter being made up, they couldn't have landed at that rock. Thank you very much. I think it's because they talk in. My understanding is that in some of the interpretation, they talk about Plymouth Rock at Plymouth Plantation. Thank you for the correction. Thank you. Julesy, I love old graffiti. Julesy, have you been to the Tower of London? Because we have got some truly exceptional graffiti particularly in the Beauchamp Tower and in the Salt Tower. So if you haven't been, check it out. Because this is great. Obviously, this is fabulous graffiti. And I can definitely see why it looks like Napoleon. I mean, that hat, it's very identifying, I think. But yeah, the graffiti at the tower, you've seen some stuff on TV, Julesy says. If you get a chance to come, it is absolutely fabulous. Julesy, you want to come to the UK and stay forever? I hope you like rain. I hope you like rain and that you aren't prone to rickets because you're not going to get much sunlight. So it's rain all the time. You do like rain? Well, you'll fit right in then. so we get 15 minutes of summer. That's enough. We all run outside to the parks, take most of our clothes off. We get a sunburn that lasts us about 3 or 4 weeks, and then we just get rain all the time. Okie dokie. We have got an archaeologist has likened the uncovering of a Victorian embankment across the Leven estuary to finding, quote, Atlantis. High tides and moving sands uncovered a long stretch of a structure called Collins Weir, which is topped with wagon tracks, we can see there. This was built between 1847 and 1849 in an attempt to make the water around the Ulverston Canal deeper so ships could use it. The rail tracks were created to move the stone used to build the structure, but it did not work, and the line was ultimately covered with sand. Dan Ellsworth, who's an archaeologist from Ulverston, said the reveal was like seeing Atlantis, the fictional underwater empire described by Plato. He said, quote, I'm sure there's more things out there we've forgotten about completely as well that will no doubt appear at different times. This was last uncovered in 2007, but this time more of it is visible. An attempt to extend the weir shortly after it was built proved unsuccessful. Mr. Ellsworth added the structure was, quote, intended to try and move the channel of the River Leven back towards Ulverston Canal. Brian Valco says I'm making it sound like a rainforest. No, I don't know what it's like, but the rain comes at you in all directions. I mean, for a nation that loves an umbrella, I don't know why, because you get soaked with an umbrella over you. Livid. Makeup Monarchy said it was hot last early July, though. In England, in the UK, yeah, I think it was hot for about 5 minutes. What? Steve, 4 seasons in one day, 4 seasons in one morning sometimes. This morning, I woke up, looked out of my bedroom window, beautiful blue sky. Beautiful blue sky. About half an hour later, absolutely torrential downpour, pelting, then just grey sky. You go out, you think, oh, it's cold. I'll put layers on. By the time you've walked to the tube, it's the sun's come out and you are sweating through every layer you have. I love it. I'm complaining, but I love it. Continue on. This is a cool one. Really cool. I like this one. Remnants of a legendary typeface have been rescued from the River Thames. I think I like this one so much because the photographs remind me of a crime drama, the start of a crime drama, which we watched ages ago. It was called Copper. It was set in the States, a historical crime drama. It was like, what happened to that? That was a great series. There were like 2 seasons of it. It was fabulous. This this reminds me of the title sequence for that. This has been found in the River Thames. We're told a little over a century ago, the printer T.J. Cobden Sanderson took it upon himself to surreptitiously dump every piece of this carefully honed metal letterpress type into the river. This is Dove's typeface. It was an act of retribution against his business partner, Emery Walker, whom he believes attempting to swindle him. Amanda says that Copper got cancelled. I thought that show was great. I really liked it. It was like gritty. So the pair conceived this idiosyncratic arts and crafts typeface when they founded the Dove's Press in Hammersmith in 1900. They worked with Percy Tiffin and master punch cutter Edward Prince to recall the Renaissance clarity of 15th century Venetian fonts. So that's what they were looking for. It's got extra wide capital letters, diamond-shaped punctuation, and unique off-kilter dots on the letter I. This type became this particular press's hallmark. The letter forms only existed in as a unique 16-point edition, meaning that when Cobden Sanderson decided to bequeath every single piece of moulded lead to the Thames, he effectively destroyed any prospect of the typeface ever being printed again, which might have been the case were it not for several individuals and a particularly tenacious graphic designer. Robert Greene first became fascinated with Dove's typeface in the mid-2000s, scouring printed edition and online facsimiles. He faithfully redrew and digitized every line. In 2013, he released the first downloadable version of the type spec, but remained dissatisfied. He then, in 2014, decided to take to the river to see if he could find any of the original pieces. He pinpointed the exact spot where the printer had offloaded his wares. He said he'd been down there 20 minutes and he found 3 pieces. He managed to recover a total of 151 sorts, names for the individual pieces of type, out of a possible 500,000. These finds have enabled him to further develop his digitized version and connected him with official mudlarks who have uncovered even more of the type. Jason Sandy, who's an author, architect, and member of the Society of Thames Mudlark, found 12 pieces, which he's donated to Emery Walker's house. And hopefully more is going to be found. There is the Emery Walker house. We have just 3 more days. The Emery Walker house in Hammersmith Terrace. There is an exhibition called Mudlarking, Unearthing London's Past, where these finds can be seen, along with other things that have been found on the foreshore of the Thames. So if you are in Hammersmith between now and May 30th and you want to check it out, go to Mudlarking, Unearthing London's Past at Emery Walker's house, which is 7 Hammersmith Terrace. Amanda says on Copper, low viewership and complaints about historical accuracy killed the show. I'll be honest, it's not a historical time period or location that I know a lot about. I enjoyed the stories, but then I also enjoy things like Murdoch Mysteries and Miss Fisher's Murder Mysteries. I like them, and I like Ripper Street as well. Julesy, I like Ripper Street. Yeah, I like Ripper Street too. Paige says you always wanted to try mudlarking. I got to go mudlarking. I went with a licensed mudlark, and she showed me the ropes, and it's very cool. I really enjoyed it. Brian asks, I'm watching British TV and don't understand what a vicar is. The vicar's like the local priest. Scarlet, I like Miss Fisher. Friday, love a bit of Friday Fisher. She has a pistol. She flies her own plane, and she's got an excellent bob. She's got a bob you could cut paper with. Oh, hello. My husband says, I like a crime drama. It's even more appealing when there are vintage dresses and vintage violence. Correct. Sharon, Nicola White's a great mudlarker. I'll have to see if I can find her. See if I can find her. She loves. I also love a clay pipe. I found some bits of clay pipe. I was very happy. I didn't find a full clay pipe. If I ever get round to getting them properly into mudlarking, that will be my thing. I want to find some clay pipes. I mean, I was also a kid who watched a lot of Poirot. Love a bit of Poirot. Canaletto painting is returning to Wales 80 years after a mine protected it from Nazi wartime bombing in London. This is the stonemason's yard, which was kept intact in a Welsh slate mine after it came to the country as a, quote, refugee during World War II to protect it from air raids. It is now one of 12 pieces from the National Gallery's collection to be going on display at museums across the UK. The exhibition, this is going to be on display at the National Library of Wales in Aberystwyth from Friday. So this article was the 9th of May. So the 10th of May, it went on display. And the exhibition is telling the story of how the painting came to Wales as a refugee to protect it from the Nazi air raids on London during the Second World War. It was kept intact in the slate mines in Gwynedd, and it's then been returned to the UK's capital once the risk of the attacks were over. 12 pieces of the National Gallery's collection are going to be on display at museums and art galleries across the UK. The chief executive of the National Library of Wales said, "It's an honour to have one of Canaletto's masterpieces here and displaying the work alongside some of the highlights of the National Art Collection. Working with the National Gallery on this exhibition to mark their 200th anniversary has been an incredible privilege," said the library's interpretation officer. "Being able to welcome Canaletto's masterpiece back to Wales after having taken refuge here 80 years ago is tremendously exciting, and they cannot wait to share this fascinating story with the public. This exhibition is going to be on display until the 7th of September. And there are the other paintings that are on display around the UK include the following. We've got the Wilton Diptych, a Rembrandt self-portrait, the Hay Wain by Constable, Venus and Mars by Botticelli, self-portrait of Saint Katherine of Alexandria by Artemisia Gentileschi. We've got Turner's Fighting in Temeraire, Renoir's Umbrellas, Vermeer's Young Woman at the Virginal, Caravaggio's Supper at Emmaus, the Rokeby Venus, and Monet's Water Lily Pond. Jessie says, "Return to Wales makes it sound like it was sent from Wales to England for protection from the bombing, not the other way around." Yeah, that is, when you mention that is weirdly worded when you put it that way. Yes. Brian reminds us that there are massive calls the internet devoted to Jack the Ripper, and their video thumbnails keep telling me they've solved the case, but you have your doubts. I think rightly so. Ripperologists really overpromise the title of their videos. It's one of those, there are a few areas where it presents itself as this kind of odd hybrid of cold case true crime and historical study, where, in my opinion, the vast majority of people who are presenting themselves as authorities do not display the kind of research rigor and self-critical couching of understanding. I think when you present something as being undeniable fact, you're in dangerous territory, whatever that may be, particularly with something that's this old. So this is for me, as a historian, I see a lot of people saying that so and so has been solved categorically, and I immediately have my doubts. The one thing that I see time and time again is the Voynich manuscript. I made a video about the mystery of the Voynich manuscript, in which I'm very clear that we don't know what it means, and that's half of the fun, in a way, of what the potentials of what it could be. I think similar things are happening with that Roman dodecahedron, that there is a mystery around what it is, and there are possibilities. I think when you start getting people who are vehement in it cannot be this or it must be this, with no potential wiggle room there, to me that's not the practice of history. It's very, very rare, particularly this distance of remove, to be able to be that categorical. Jessie points out a US crime author claims to have solved the Ripper case. Is this the one? Because there's somebody who thinks it's Walter Sickert. Is that the US crime author? Does she think it's Walter Sickert or Tumblety? Marianne H.H. Holmes. Yeah, that's another one that's come up. H.H. Holmes, there are those surgical blades that come from Sheffield, I think, in his collection. Interesting. Brian, we talk about Amelia Earhart's lost plane being solved every couple of years. We do all sorts of things. There are perennial case closed. I think it's really hard to get a 25-year case closed. 125 years? 500 years? Dream on. Not going to happen. Jessie, yes. Patricia Cornwall thinks it's Walter Sickert. And the thing is, it might be. It might be. Steve, there is very little evidence which we can point any one subject to the case. There was, of course, that shawl that people asserted was evidence that belonged to one of the victims, but that is questioned. There was some desire to DNA test it, but even if it had belonged to her, it was not held in anything appropriate to forensic conditions. So yeah, these sorts of, and I suppose for me it's putting this serial killer at the center of it. I mean, it's only been recently with Hallie Rubenhold's incredible work that that people are being forced to confront the narrative of who these women were and why they have been dismissed and discarded and just grouped together as being, as so often the case, unfortunately, when it comes to sex workers who are victims of violence, there is that phrase that they are less dead. It happened with the Yorkshire Ripper. So for me, there are wider questions around the Jack the Ripper case sociologically and what it tells us about people whose cases get solved. Paige, my theory is that Jack the Ripper killed the Prince of the Tower. I mean, the Ricardians will love you for that. Brian says the pop culture image of the well-dressed man in the top hat and cape, well, this deranged and gross one is a lot worse. I think the thing for me, that kind of that spring-heeled Jack, saucy Jackie, that sort of almost weird hero worship is gross. And the one thing that I'm prepared to go out on a limb on, and not say I think for definite, but I think I would be very surprised if the individual responsible for the killings that are attributed to Jack the Ripper, the notion that that person is walking around Whitechapel at that time in a top hat and cape and is able to go unnoticed when these murders are occurring, to me, that is the most outlandish thing. That is not a person that's going to fit in Whitechapel. I don't buy that. A historic Navarre cabin is going to leave South Bend Park, where its sat since 1904. Paige, if you want to know, I'm sure you've already come across Hallie Rubenhold's book, The Five, but if you did want to learn more about the women and their lives before Jack, then I recommend Hallie Rubenhold's book. I think it's brilliantly researched. I think it is rigorous, but also empathetic. And I think on top of that, follow her on social media, because she does things like point out, for example, when people, and there's a lot of businesses in and around the East End that play on Jack the Ripper. You know, you've got a barber's called Jack the Clipper. You've got a fish and chip shop, which I think is called Jack the Chipper or something like that. And they are seeking to profit off of it. So, yeah. If you would like to know more about the ladies, then I recommend Hallie Rubenhold's book. So this historic Navarre cabin is the oldest structure in St. Joseph County, and it's going to move from the place where it's sat for the last 120 years. The History Museum saved the structure from demolition in 1895, and they're going to move it from Leaper Park to the museum campus. This is because it's going to become the centre of an immersive exhibit about the lives of pioneers and Native Americans in the early 19th century. There was the South Bend St. Joseph County Historic Preservation Commission approved this move in December, having previously denied it 3 years ago. They denied the request to relocate the cabin. The request is because the distance that this house was from their main campus, they say, prevented them from utilising the structure to its full capacity. Before, they could only provide educational opportunities for schools and the community on a very limited basis. Now, with this move, they can offer more daily experiences, which is going to be fabulous. So Pierre Navarre, who is the first person of European descent to settle in St. Joseph County, came to the area in 1820 as part of John Jacob Astor's American Fur Company. He married a Potawatomi woman who then adopted the name Angelique. They had 7 children, lived in the cabin on the river's north side. Navarre's family, along with many local natives, were then forced to move to Kansas along the, quote, Trail of Death in 1835. This is when the US government forcibly removed the Potawatomi from the area in the 1840s. So we've got here a picture of Pierre Navarre with fabulous mutton chops there. The new exhibit is looking to focus on local and European goods typical of the fur trade, the ways the growing community managed its livestock, and how early settlers took care of their health. So if you are anywhere near the History Museum in St. Joseph County, in South Bend, then please do check it out and let us know what you think of it. And when you see the new display, let us know how it turns out. How interesting. A vast coin collection of a Danish magnate is going on sale a century after his death. This is the Danish butter magnet, and it's thought that this coin collection could fetch up to $72 million. Lars M.L. Brun, known as L.E. Brun, stipulated in his will that his 20,000-piece collection should be safeguarded for 100 years before being sold. That's what's happened. He died in 1923. now a New York-based auction house, a rare coin auction house called Stack's Bowers, is going to begin to auction this collection in the fall. There are several sales planned over the coming years. So it's going to be sold piecemeal. It's estimated that some of the pieces are going to sell for just $50, but others, individual pieces, could go for over $1 million. Potential buyers are already requesting a catalogue before the auction's even been announced. Denmark's National Museum has had the right of first refusal on part of the collection, and they have purchased 7 rare coins from the hoard before any of them went to auction. These 7 coins, 6 are gold, 1 are silver, all minted between the 15th and 17th centuries by Danish or Norwegian monarchs. The cost of them, over $1.1 million, was covered by a supporting association. So we are going to presumably hear news about these coins at auction over coming years. As and when we do, then I will, of course, update you. Apologies. Paige points out that it is pronounced Potawatomi. 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 I apologise. Potawatomi. Thank you very much for correcting me. Brian, something is overpriced in the state of Denmark. Love it. Jessie, the numismatist, the coin collections must be drooling. Well, it seems they certainly are, because they are demanding that coin catalogue. Demanding. On the move of that cabin, the new exhibit will certainly protect it from vandals, but also having it closer to where the main campus is, it means that it will be in use. I'm wondering if they're going to have some historical interpretation in and around it, which would be very cool if they can. I'm not sure if that's possible. Depends on the preservation needs, I suppose. This one's a long article. And it's really interesting. Inside the biggest art fraud in history. Norval Morisseau was certain, quote, "I did not paint the attached 23 acrylics on canvas." He wrote this in a typed 2001 letter to his Toronto gallery representative, who had sent him colour photocopies of the works that had recently sold at an unrelated auction. When he wrote this letter, he was in his late 60s and suffering from Parkinson's disease. He was the most important artist in the modern history of Canada's Indigenous peoples. He's referred to as the, quote, Picasso of the North. By 2001, his paintings were regularly featuring thousands of dollars on the market. These works that he denied having painted were no exception. He was justifiably incensed. However, it's not until this past year, more than 15 years after his death, that a consortium of investigators, led apparently, oddly, by a homicide cop from the small city of, wait for it, Thunder Bay, our favourite place, Ontario, finally exposed the scheme to defraud Morisseau. Not even the artist himself could have imagined the scale of the fraud, which, in both the number of forged paintings and the profits made from their sale, is likely the biggest art fraud in history, not just in Canada or North America, but indeed in the world. For many collectors, these lookalikes passed muster. Richard Baker, Morisseau's lawyer, said, quote, "His art is very easy to forge if you want to do that. When you look at the two-dimensional quality of Morisseau's art, you can tell that. It's fairly simple. If you're a skillful forger, you can forge a Morisseau painting quite well. And it would be difficult to distinguish from an authentic painting." That feels shady. That feels like a shady thing to say. Maybe it's true, but it still feels shady. In the later years of his life, he filed 15 affidavits identifying fakes. And that's also when he founded the Norval Morisseau Heritage Society. Between 2001 and 2005, His lawyers sent letters demanding gallery owners stop selling the works the painter claimed he had never seen, let alone created. But by the middle of 2005, he was very unwell and living in a nursing home. Quote, he told a reporter, quote, "The only thing I think about is to paint. I just want to paint. There are things in my head I'd like to get out, but right now it can't happen." He died just 2 years later at 75. His death emboldened his opponents. Auctioneers, gallery owners, and collectors who wanted to profit from selling paintings of potentially dubious provenance sued the artist's authorized dealer, as well as his lawyer and others whose claims of widespread Morrisseau fraud threatened the value of canvases these sellers had owned, had sold, or might sell. So the men who sold fakes online to collectors, dealers, and auction houses, and indeed it was a man called Voss who had supplied the auction house outside Toronto with the fakes that aroused Morrisseau's attention in 2001. McDermott, who is a Scottish-Canadian singer, John McDermott, dropped the claim for unknown reasons, and his representative did not respond to numerous requests for comments. But other collectors, auctioneers, and buyers began looking to the courts to adjudicate their disputes as well. I mean, what a way for somebody who's made their career, their life's work, art. What a way to have to spend your final years desperately attempting to preserve the truth of your legacy from people who are on a large scale forging your work when you're already sick. How miserable. Actually, yeah, I feel really sorry for him. So I put this here because the next two are listed as new news, but they are ding dong adjacent. Kerry says, were they arrested? So Canadian law enforcement opened an investigation into claims of widespread fraud in 2008. They looked at gallery owners who were profiting from the alleged fakes. The Mounties declared the investigation inconclusive, and they wrote to Thunder Bay Police, quote, "Investigators did not identify nor obtain the requisite evidence necessary to support the allegations of criminal activity." So I've put this as ding dong adjacent. The next two are ding dong adjacent. And then the last one is a definite ding dong. So two more ding dong adjacents coming up. Here we go. Stolen weather vane returns to Vermont. So somebody pinch this. An antique copper weather vane was stolen from the White River Junction railway station 40 years ago, is now back in Vermont. This is a 1910 weather vane, which depicted a steam locomotive and a coal tender. It was stolen on the 3rd of November, 1983. Nearly 40 years after the theft, the weather vane was consigned to a New York auction house. The Art Loss Register checks items in databases, and they found this Vermont weather vane was a match for the stolen item, and thus the auction house withdrew it from sale. The state of Vermont now owns the White River Junction station, and the Art Loss Register, which provided their services on a pro bono basis, partnered with the Vermont Agency of Transportation to return the weather vane last week. Sotheby's had described it as a, quote, property from the estate of Martin Shack, moulded and gilded locomotive weather vane from Snow Iron Works, Inc., Boston, Massachusetts, circa 1910. So it's back where it belongs now, having been pinched. This next one, I don't know. This is why I've left this as a potential ding dong. I don't know where I stand on damaging casings or frames or things, protective frames of items of incredible historic value in the name or climate protesting. I don't know where I stand on this, because on the one hand, climate emergency is utterly terrifying, and there is going to be precious little point, or indeed potential, to protect and preserve our past if we don't do something to protect and preserve our future. However, 2 women have tried to break the glass containing the Magna Carta in the British Library in London, and they have been charged with criminal damage. The criminals in question are the Reverend Sue Parfitt, 82, from Bristol, and Judith Bruce, 85, from Swansea. They are both part of the Just Stop Oil environmental activism group. The library statement said the library security team intervened to prevent further damage to the case, which was minimal. The women have both been bailed, but they are due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on the 20th of June. The Just Stop Oil, in a statement, said the protesters are, quote, demanding the UK government commit to an emergency plan to end the extraction and burning of oil, gas and coal by 2030. Parfitt adds in a statement, quote, the Magna Carta is rightly revered, being of great importance to our history, our freedoms and our laws. But there will be no freedom, no lawfulness, no rights if we allow climate breakdown to become the catastrophe that is now threatened. As we know, Just Stop Oil has previously targeted Van Gogh's Sunflowers, Gian Petrino's Last Supper, and numerous other things as well. The protesters told the crowds at the museum, quote, even today, criminal elites gorge themselves on our back. Uniting and resisting them is vital. Let's enter into civil resistance. Let's not let a privileged minority decide our future. These are protesters from France's Riposte Alimentaire, who were arrested on the 8th of May after putting stickers next to Eugene Delacroix's painting, Liberty Leading the People. I honestly don't know where I stand on this, because on the one hand, if I knew if I've frequently talked about people carving their names onto the Colosseum or whatever other inane nonsense they've done, and I think it makes me vehemently enraged. But I don't know what the answer is here, which is why it's not a ding dong, but it's close. Onto the ding dong. A hunt for a missing Viking hoard is going on. This is a hoard of priceless gold jewellery and silver coins that was found in a Hertfordshire field in 2015. It changed the history of England and the Welsh marches. After 9 years, police investigations and numerous court cases, the whereabouts of most of this Herefordshire hoard remains a mystery. This week, one of the men who stole the treasure, allegedly, I guess, is back in court. But it still offers no clues as to where these items are hidden. These gold jewels and coins had laid hidden for 1,100 years until George Powell and Leighton Davis found them with a metal detector. If they had declared the find, they would well have been millionaires, but they wanted to keep it for themselves and profit in secret. So in 2019, they were convicted of theft and concealing the find. The items have not... There have been some items recovered by the police, but it's nowhere near the extent of the hoard, we're told. There are photos taken by Powell and Davis showing an estimated 300 plus coins in a freshly dug hole, only a few dozen of which have been found since. As to where the rest of the coins are, in 2021, Powell and Davies were back at Worcester Crown Court for the proceeds of crime hearing. There were conflicting accounts of only a few dozen coins being found, the hoard being discovered somewhere else and moved to Herefordshire, the coins being sold via an auction house in Austria to dealers whose names they do not know. Judge Nicholas Cartwright said he did not believe them and ordered the pair to pay more than £600,000 each or spend 5 more years in jail. We are told The Heritage Museum spokesperson said, each coin, each object, we have an opportunity to connect with our past and to understand more about people, how they live there, and what that means today. We are eager to see the hoard recovered and support the police and courts' work in making this happen. George Powell this week applied to the Royal Court of Justice in London for the right to appeal against the judge's order. This appeal was refused because there was evidence that Powell had found the 300 coins and still intended to profit from them. So all of this stuff is lost, and there are people doing a lot of time in prison because they will not give up where it is. So what a shame. What a shame. What a pair of ding-dongs. Hopefully they turn up, but an awful lot of time has passed and they are keeping very quiet. So I don't think we've got a lot of hope of that happening. Right. On to our events and exhibitions. This is an online event. If you would like to join a history book club, then the Museum of Fine Arts Houston is hosting an online one. And here we have the schedule there. So you still have July 10th one, Before Mrs. Beeton, Elizabeth Bradfield, England's most influential housekeeper. So you've got to quickly cram in reading that before you can join that book club. So yes, as I said, all of these are linked in the description box. So if you want to check this out and join an online book club, here you go. The Museum of Fine Arts Houston has what you need. The Met has got Hidden Faces, covered portraits of the Renaissance. This is an exhibition that's going to examine an intriguing but largely unknown side, in literal sense, of Renaissance painting, namely multi-sided portraits in which citizen likeness was concealed by a hinged or sliding cover within a box or by a dual-faced format. So this is, if you're in New York, from until July 7th, so a couple more months to go, then you may want to check this one out. It does look very interesting indeed. As usual, if I have been able to find, which I did in this case, the accessibility information for these museums and their exhibitions, that is also linked beneath the link to buying tickets. So if you do need accessibility information, please make sure you check that out and click the link, and that should be helpful. This is in Connecticut, but also online. This is an exhibition, Samplers and the Girls Who Made Them. This is the Litchfield Historical Society. Samplers are needlework. They are objects of art as well. They are stories of creativity, instruction, and skilled work. They're also historical records documenting the lives and experiences of thousands of young women. This exhibition is on display from April 26th through to December the 1st. There are, however, the online event is on, this is on the, apologies, from the 5th of May. So perhaps there'll be more online events going on. I hope so. Apologies for that. I thought this was going to be repeated. Maybe there is access to it. It might have been recorded. This was Know My Name, How Schoolgirl Samplers Created a Remarkable History with Alexandra Peters. Perhaps if you check, they may have a recording of that if you would like to check it out. San Francisco, Phoenix Kingdoms, the last splendor of China's Bronze Age. This is based on recent archaeological discoveries. Phoenix Kingdoms is revealing the previously unknown splendor, sophistication, and extravagance of two kingdoms that flourished at the end of China's Bronze Age. This opened on April the 19th, and it is running until July the 22nd. So again, a couple of months left to go. The tagline being, rising from the ashes of conquest, two brilliant but forgotten cultures claim their rightful place in China's history. And from the look of things, the images of the exhibition stuff, it does look, the exhibits look really cool. And last, by no means least, this is in Chicago, and this is an exhibition entitled before it all goes dark. The tagline being, what would you do if you discovered a terrible secret? This is the world premiere, commissioned and produced by Music of Remembrance, based on the true story reported by the Chicago Tribune columnist Howard Reich about an ailing Vietnam War veteran who learns he is the heir to a priceless art collection stolen by the Nazis. His arduous voyage to Prague in search of his inheritance leads him to embrace an identity that had been hidden from him. And through art, he discovers a deeper truth in his life. So this is a musical piece, the premiere of which was over this weekend. I'm hoping that there is these are the premiere dates and that it's still going on. I hope it's not just those 2 dates. If it is, I apologize. And if they were just those 2 dates, I do hope that it will be on in the future, or that a recording will be available. As I said, this was supposed to go out last Monday, but obviously my ears went upsetting on account of the hormones ravaging my body currently. So I would have given you a week to know about this, but alas, I'm now late on it, and I hope there's an option for you to go and check it out. So that is what I have for you for today. We will be back in 2 weeks with more history news. Please do keep those news items coming. I really appreciate it. If you have enjoyed today's history news, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, that you hit the like button, that you also hit the bell icon beside the subscribe button, because that way YouTube claims they will tell you when I'm next uploading and also planning to go live. As we know, they don't always. So do head over to my website, www.katrinamarchant.com. If you go to the contact page on that website, you will see that there is a little box. If you put your email in that box, that will add you to my mailing list, and I will send you out an email once a week. In that, I will tell you what the plan is for my Friday video, and if there's going to be a live, I will also tell you about that, and I will give you the links for those if you should so wish to have them and keep them safe. So that is what I have for you today. Please, if you like this, share it with your pals. Let them know about my channel as well. And as I also said, on account of me being pregnant, this is probably going to be the last live stream that can go to the better part of 3 hours, because I am currently bursting for the loo. So we may be doing some more selective news pieces for the next few months. So I do apologize if your news items don't get picked, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make 3-hour live streams going forward. Hopefully in the future, but soon we will muddle through as best we can. So thank you very much, friends, for joining me, for sending me your items, for watching live or watching on the playback. And I hope you're going to have a wonderful Monday, Tuesday, wherever you are in your week, and the rest of your week will also be absolutely glorious. For now, though, do take care of yourselves, and I look forward to speaking to you either in the live chat on a premiere or perhaps in my next History News Live. But yeah, have a great time. Bye-bye for now.